3D Earth Day Spinner Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial without using an e-file. So you're going to want to start by marking where you want the spinner to be, where you're going to want the hole to be, and I'm using just a permanent marker. It doesn't matter what color, because you're going to cut it off anyway. So then using a paper punch, you're going to make the hole. And this doesn't work very easy, I'm not going to lie. It is kind of difficult actually to get it to go through, but as long as it's sort of going through, as long as it's making like a dent, keep working on it because eventually it will go through. It just takes some, and my paper punch is pretty low quality, so that doesn't help. So then once it's at least most of the way through, you can take a tweezers and just like pull the little plastic circle out. And there you have your hole. So now make sure your bead fits in that hole, so just set your bead in there and make sure there's some space around it. So now I'm going to be painting my bead because I want to look like a little earth, so I'm placing it just on the spool of wire that I use, and that'll hold it in place kind of while I'm painting the bead. And I'm not very patient. If you were more patient, you could make less of a mess than I did, because you could paint half of it and then wait till that dries and then turn it over. But I was kind of impatient, so I just kept going and got polish all over my hand. So then using green, I'm just going to sort of roughly paint the shapes of the continents, and this is the same thing. If you wanted to wait, you'd make less of a mess than I did, but yeah, it worked. And I also forgot, you're going to want to paint the top and the bottom of the bead white for Antarctica and the North Pole. And then you're going to place a small little bit of clear acrylic on either side of the hole and place your spinner. And I just put my spinner on a little piece of that thick wire. So now file around. So you're going to file basically the wire or the post and that little bit of clear acrylic just to smooth it out. You don't want to file all the way through it because then it won't be held on, but you just want to file it just enough that it isn't so bulky and isn't such a weird lumpy shape. So now using Cover Pink, we're going to be forming the nail bed just like you would any other time. And I'm doing a fairly deep French tip. I mean, a smile line, it's not too deep, but just form your smile line and make sure that it is, in this particular case, you want to make it as perfect as you possibly can right now, because filing it is going to be a little more inconvenient with the spinner in the way. You can still file it, but just easier. So file it if you need to. I decided to because, why not? But you want it to be smooth and even, so. And then starting at the bottom of the hole, you could start anywhere you want, but I think this is easier. You're going to want to place a light blue bead and a fairly dry bead because you don't want it to run into the hole, and go around that and blend it out towards the sides. And as you're doing this, you want to be very careful to try and not get any acrylic on your bead. It's not as easy as that sounds because the bead moves and it wants to get in. So periodically, as I was doing this, I would touch the bead and make sure it still moved. This way, in case it did get some acrylic on it, wasn't going to get stuck. So then using medium blue acrylic, go and blend that around so that it gets darker towards the tip of your nail and darker towards the smile line, and also a little bit on the edges as well. You just want it to make it look like it's getting darker as it's going out into the stratosphere. And again, keep moving your bead. Even though you're not getting acrylic right up against the bead or right up against the hole with this step, you still want to make sure that your bead moves, just because it would really be unfortunate for it to all of a sudden get stuck after all this work. So then fill in the last little bits with dark blue. And as before, we're going to keep blending it in. And sorry, I just went off camera there a little bit. And then also put a little bit of that really dark blue along the tip. And make sure that you cap the end of the nail as well. So in the darker areas, I took a little bead of clear acrylic and dipped it into some clear glitter. And this is just going to kind of make it look shimmery and like it's got a starry sky. And again, I'm off camera. So sorry. So now in the light blue, so right around our earth, we're going to be making little clouds. So take wet beads, really wet beads of white acrylic, and just sort of press and blend them into light fluffy clouds. now I'm just going to case the entire nail with clear acrylic, and as you're doing this, this is another spot where it's kind of difficult to avoid getting the bead, so make sure that you're tipping your hand so that the nail, or so that the bead falls to where you're not working. So if you're working above it, you're going to want to tip it down so that it goes to the bottom of the post, and if you're working on the tip of the nail, like right now, tip the nail up so that it wants to fall to the top. Or if you're lucky, the bead will just stay in the middle. So now file the nail so it's nice and smooth like you always do, but make sure that you don't file the bead, because especially since we've painted the bead, you could file off the polish and then you're going to be left with just a white bead. So now buff the nail with a padded file just to remove some of the scratches that the last file might have left behind. So now I'm going to be just adding a couple little white dots in the darkest area where that glitter is, just to give it a couple more stars. And I'm using acrylic paint right now and a dotting tool. Using black paint, I'm going to be outlining the French tip, or the smile line. And if your smile line wasn't perfect before, this is also a really good place that if you wanted to smooth it out a bit, you won't really be able to see it underneath there, so it can be perfect now. So now, along the smile line, I'm going to be writing one earth, and I'm going to start with the E of earth right in the middle, since that is the center letter, and then paint the A to the side. And as you can see, the A is at a different angle than the E is, and the R is going to be continue to go along the smile line. So you want the word to curve with the line. Leave a space before the E, or before the E you've painted, and paint another one. And finish off with your O. And of course, add a layer of top coat. If you're using gel top coat, be careful when it's in the light, because you're using a metal post and some lights are kind of like a microwave and the metal shouldn't be in there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like my design, and please share any recreations with me on Facebook and Twitter. I would absolutely love to see them. Have a great Earth Day, recycle, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!